Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. With us now on the phone is the president of Americans for Job Security, Mr. Steve DeMaura. Mr. DeMaura is the former executive director of the New Hampshire Republican State Committee. And sir, it's good to have you with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me again.
Well, let's chat about the online sales tax, the internet sales tax. It's expected to pass the Senate today with strong bipartisan support. Would this be a victory for brick and mortar stores should it pass?
I think it probably would be, yes. I mean, they've been lobbying and doing a lot of work on this for a number of years, so I think it definitely would be a victory for brick and mortar stores. And for really, I mean, any business that has a blended model, which is, some of the biggest advocates of this bill that we've seen, people that sell both on the internet and in a local brick and mortar store have become some of the strongest advocates.
Are you surprised that the GOP is divided on this vote?
No, not at all. I mean, there are a lot of conservative support for this bill. It's coming from all wings of the party. Some people want it, like it because it returns power to the state. Some people like it because it gets rid of a subsidy in the tax code, and others like it just because of the basic fairness and common sense idea. But there's certainly division, but I think it's pretty equal on both sides.
One of the concerns is that it will trigger states to abuse buyers with unfair tariffs. Anti-tax crusader Grover Norquist told me last week that there's no limit to the amount of abuse a tax collector in one state can hurl on a business in other states. Is this a concern?
No, I mean, I think there is a lot of fear-mongering going on out there that, we can all imagine, hundreds of things that could happen if this happens and another thing happens. But it's really just not grounded in fact or truth. That, I mean, it's very common that if you do a business in a state, you have to comply with the rules and regulations that are in that state. And if you don't like the regulatory structure that they have because it's bad, then don't do business in that state. And so I think a lot of these examples have really become overblown and aren't really based in fact.
Let's say that this does indeed pass the Senate. Do you see this passing in the House, or you think the House will put a stop to it?
I think it actually could pass the House. There's been growing support. We've had Congressman Ryan issued some support for the concept the last few days, and a lot of other people have really started to mention how that they think that this is kind of a common sense idea, and they just want to tweak what the bill itself looks like. So I think that something definitely will pass the House.
Let's chat for a second, Steve, about immigration reform. President Obama says that he believes immigration reform legislation will likely pass this year. The Conservative Heritage Foundation this week says this legislation will cost Americans trillions of dollars. What is the Americans for Job Security's position on this legislation?
Well, we don't have an official position on what is being called the Gang of Eight, but we generally think that something needs to be done. The system is clearly broken. We don't have enough high skill workers. I think Senator Rubio is right. We essentially have de facto amnesty. What that end bill looks like, I'm not sure. I think that a lot have admitted, and we would probably agree, that the Gang of Eight proposal is not perfect, and it's actually far from perfect. So I think that there should be some improvements there. Though I do think that the likelihood of something passes is high, and as it should.
Which improvements do you think are needed to promote growth and to create jobs?
I think one, we need some assurances that, and it's very explicit in the federal bill, but how it reacts with state laws is unclear. That some of these new immigrants don't automatically receive government benefits. I think that's very important. And the second, I think, is what exactly this pathway to citizenship looks like. And I think there's a lot of conservatives coming around that, there is a plan that you could come up with, though it's probably not in the Gang of Eight proposal. But I think that there needs to be a conservative way to deal with that if anything's going to happen.
Last question for you, Steve, is on Friday's jobs numbers. The unemployment rate is down to 7.5% with 165,000 jobs gained. Why aren't these jobs numbers even better, and why does the number of missing workers or those who dropped out of the workforce remain low at 63.3%, the lowest level since Jimmy Carter was in office?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of cheering from the Washington Wall Street crowd about the Friday job numbers. But the truth of the matter is that these numbers are very weak, and as you just stated, they don't represent the many people that have dropped out of the labor pool. And anybody that's kind of taken a class in basic economics knows that the smaller the labor pool, the worse their economy is. So a large labor pool is actually very helpful. And so these numbers do not represent the true state of our economy. And I think that the real reason is because of the anti-job, anti-growth policies that this administration has put in place. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of it came in the first couple of years when Democrats controlled both bodies of Congress, but a lot of it has come through their agencies as well, with, these hidden regulations and moratoriums that they've placed on job-creating policies, pro-growth policies. And it's really unfortunate, but we've seen the results of their bad strategy and their bad policy. And that's the millions and millions of people that are out of work or underemployed.
All right, Steve DeMaura, President of Americans for Job Security. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.